Okay, guys, part number two. There was a mistake on the intro of the subject when I was saying that part number two, there will be social Darwinism in it, but actually, we'll be talking about the evolution to modern racism. And as you can see now, let me share my screen. You will see that this is what we're going to talk about. So, we're going to talk about the evolution to modern racism and the Carte Noire's usage for the French colonial system. Okay, so it means that if we jump ahead, we jump forward in centuries. Okay, we were ancient civilization with the Greeks, with the Romans, and the Arabic civilization or Islamic civilization, and now we jumping into the century. We reach the 16th century, which has seen the start of the global triangle business, okay, also called the enslavement of Africans. Okay, we could naturally argue that this was only the beginning, but the peak of it will be the 18th century, where it will be a massive business that will be taking place. Okay, then even the French Revolution realized that it was too inhumane and decided to abolish it. And the great Napoleon Bonaparte, seeing that it was too good as a revenue stream, decided to reinitiate it. Okay, so we'll talk about it later. But let's stop for a second in 16th century. As a context, sorry, we need to appreciate what at that time the Catholic Church was. That the Catholic Church was the dominating body for religious sanctity and was often used as a reference to understand the natural laws applicable on earth. Okay, so you need to accept something that because of the Catholic Church was having a vast level of influence on the political system in Europe, and was actually making a lot of alliances with the different kingdoms in Europe, notably France, Germany, Spain, which was aligned with Germany, and also with England. Okay, so now, how can we understand? How can we say that Vatican or the Catholic Church endorsed slavery? And explicitly was saying, well, you have the right to enslave everyone you want. Well, it's not really that simple. Okay, we need to understand the different aspects. First of all, the great chain of being. Okay, the Catholic Church had a hierarchical view of the universe, therefore placing the humans at the apex of this concept. Okay, this concept, without specifically citing any race, was putting human on top, and there was no definition of the race on top of it. Okay, but it was a hierarchical system in their view. Okay. Second, natural law. Catholic Church providing the idea of natural law, where divine order was governing the human society. So to justify existing social structures, typically the aristocracy, the clergy, and the third state, also called the plebs. Okay, the plebs were basically the middle class and the lesser class. Okay. Third, religious conversion. There was this notion of bringing civilization to barbarians. So in that view, Christianity will be brought to others, inferior civilizations such as South America and Africa. There was actually we were actually at the golden age of exploration and colonization, roughly between the 15th centuries to the 18th centuries. Okay. 4, papal bulls. Okay, so there were the way that the Catholic Church was providing some not orders but recommendation, and as a point of reference for political and natural order, they were used as the reference, because the entire world as we knew it at that time, which was mostly Europe, Catholic Church was the reference. Now, the Catholic Church was condemning forms of slavery touching Christians, often even regulating the trade of enslaved people, that is proving an evolving position or stance of the church on this subject. So they were against initially, and over time they were saying, well, can discuss about the regulations of this trade. Okay. But however, and this is if you read between the lines, it means that the Catholic Church never ever formally condemned slavery touching others than Christians. They were saying, don't touch Christians. But if you touch Christians, we can discuss about the regulation of it, meaning that they could eventually buy themselves, slaves that were Christians, but slavery touching others, they didn't care. That's what it means. So you can see already that directly Catholic Church can't be blamed about slavery or any kind of slavery, but they were trying to protect mostly Christians against it. Okay, so already you see the Catholic Church is playing a role that is not entirely clear. They playing in between the lines, so to speak. Now, jumping ahead, we're now stopping in the 17th century, where the French Empire enacted colonial laws to regulate the conduct of enslaved Africans in the French colonies. It's called the Code Noir, okay? The Black Code, if you prefer. Okay, so basically the Code Noir, what is it? It's basically denying any basic human rights because, Black people or Indian people were not considered as human. They would be stripped of any legal or personal rights. So there were the religious control, where enslaved people were forced into Catholicism, but access to religious practices was heavily restricted. Okay, marital restrictions, marriage between enslaved people was prohibited, and the children by parent-child relationship were automatically considered objects or slaves. Okay, but literally objects. If an object doesn't do what you want, you punish it, you torture it, or you kill it. That's what it means. Brutal punishment. I will save you from any details, but if you search for the Code Noir or the Black Code about the French colonies, you will be horrified. This was really inhuman. Really, in the worst possible terms, it was inhuman. So basically, it was torture and execution from the most horrible manners. That's what it means. Okay. So you can clearly see that the Code Noir was a rigid definition of the racial definition provided by white colonists at the apex of slavery, and white colonists at the top, at the apex, and enslaved African at the bottom, okay, at the very bottom. So if you think about it, if you know history, you know that in the Middle Age, there was something equivalent. Wow, right? So in the Middle Age, you had basically the creation of aristocracy, with the lords taking full advantage of the serfdom and the villeins. The main difference, there were the serf and there were the villeins. The difference will be that the villeins were less numerous. They had liberty to marry for justice and to be treated with faith when they were facing the law. The serf were actually ancient slaves that couldn't marry, facing a lot of restrictions and taxes. But the two of them, villeins and serf, were at the bottom, and at the apex was the lord, the duke, the count, or whatever or other aristocratic titles that they had, prince or the king, right? So as you can see, both the Catholic Church and the Code Noir established a rigid racial and social hierarchy with either enslaved Africans, but also if you look prior in the Middle Ages, like after 1,000 years after Christ, you could see the peasants, the way they were treated by the beginning of aristocracy. Okay. And they were extending basically harsh conditions on slaves at the time of slavery or on peasants at the time of the Middle Age to keep them at the bottom. It was legalized as the framework for the exploitation of dehumanized people, black people, or poor people. Basically, it was the same movement to take advantage of others, to take advantage of people that couldn't defend themselves, and they were treated like garbage or tools that they could exploit and take advantage of. So this was part number 2. So I'll see you in part number 3.